My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has been waiting to reach your heart, something the person you love has struggled to express in ordinary words. You may believe this is simply another message appearing at an ordinary hour, but heaven has drawn your attention here because there is a truth moving beneath the silence. Do not rush away. The deepest part has not yet been revealed. The person on your heart wants you to know something important, and although they may not be standing before you right now, their emotions have been speaking more loudly than their voice ever could. There has been a conversation happening in the quiet places of their soul. It has continued late at night, in moments when the world became still and they could no longer distract themselves from what they truly felt. They have replayed certain memories of you. They have remembered your patience, your kindness, the way your presence once made something inside them feel safe. They have also remembered the moments when distance entered, when confusion grew, and when words that should have been spoken were held back. There is something they wish they could change, but that is not the greatest revelation. The greater truth is that the silence between you has not erased the connection. In many ways, it has forced them to finally understand it. Stay until the end, because there is one part of this message they have been afraid to admit even to themselves. They want you to know that what appeared like indifference was not always indifference. What looked like emotional distance was sometimes fear. What felt like forgetting was often a desperate attempt to control feelings that had become too powerful. They did not know how to carry what they felt without becoming vulnerable, and vulnerability frightened them more than they allowed anyone to see. So they stepped back when their heart wanted to move closer. They became quiet when every part of them wanted to speak. They acted as though nothing had changed, while internally everything was changing. You must understand, beloved, that human beings sometimes hide the truth most carefully when the truth matters most. They may openly discuss unimportant things, yet become silent around the one feeling that could alter the direction of their life. This is what has happened within the person you love. They have been able to move through daily routines, answer questions, smile in front of others, and appear as though they are unaffected. But their private moments tell a different story. There are pauses in their day when your name enters their mind without warning. There are familiar places that make them remember you. There are songs, phrases, and quiet details that carry your presence back into their awareness. They want you to know that your impact was greater than they ever told you. You were not simply another person passing through their life. You awakened something. You challenged the way they saw love, trust, commitment, and even themselves. That is why this connection became complicated. It was not because it was meaningless. It became complicated because it reached places within them that they had avoided for a long time. Your presence touched old fears, hidden hopes, and wounds they thought they had already buried. They wanted the comfort of loving you, but they feared the responsibility of being seen so deeply. Do not skip, because the next truth changes the meaning of everything that has happened. The person you love has recently begun to recognize that they misunderstood you in an important way. They once believed your quietness meant you did not care enough. They may have interpreted your boundaries as rejection, your patience as weakness, or your need for clarity as pressure. But something has shifted in their understanding. They are beginning to see that you were not trying to control the connection. You were trying to protect what was real. You were not demanding perfection. You were asking for honesty. You were not walking away because you felt nothing. You were growing tired of carrying an emotional weight that belonged to two people. This realization did not come easily. It arrived through a moment they were not prepared for. Someone may have said something that reminded them of you. They may have witnessed another relationship and suddenly understood what you had been trying to communicate. Or perhaps they found themselves in a situation where they received the same confusing behavior they once gave to you. Whatever the exact circumstance, it caused them to stop and reflect. For the first time, they saw the story through your eyes, and what they saw unsettled them. They began to realize how often you waited for words that never came. They remembered the times you tried to create understanding while they avoided the conversation. They thought about how you continued to care even when you did not feel fully secure. They saw the strength it required for you to remain kind while questioning where you stood. This recognition brought a heaviness into their heart, because they could no longer tell themselves that you were asking for too much. Deep down, they now know you were asking for what genuine love naturally requires: consistency, respect, courage, and truth. Yet this message is not only about regret. Something much deeper is unfolding. The person you love wants you to know that they are no longer able to dismiss the future they imagined with you. They may have tried to replace that vision with other plans. They may have convinced themselves that time would make it disappear. But certain visions do not leave when they are connected to a meaningful bond. They return in quiet moments. They appear in dreams. They rise when life feels empty despite outward success. And this vision of you has returned to them with greater force than before. They have imagined what it would feel like to speak honestly without hiding. They have wondered whether you would still listen. They have pictured themselves admitting what they should have said long ago. But every time they come close to forming the words, another fear appears. What if they waited too long? What if you have changed? What if your heart has learned to live without the hope they once gave you? These questions trouble them, not because they believe they are entitled to your attention, but because they are finally seeing the value of what they failed to handle carefully. My child, you may have felt sudden emotions recently that did not seem to have an obvious source. A memory may have returned unexpectedly. You may have dreamed about them after a long period of emotional quiet. You may have sensed that something was unfinished, even while trying to move forward. Do not allow these experiences to control you, but do not dismiss the lesson within them. Sometimes an unresolved connection continues to reveal what both hearts still need to understand. This does not mean you must chase, wait endlessly, or abandon your peace. It means there is wisdom being uncovered through what you have endured. The person you love wants you to know that they have noticed your change. Even from a distance, they can sense that you are not the same person you were before. You have become quieter in some ways, stronger in others. You no longer reach for reassurance in the same manner. You no longer explain your heart to those who repeatedly choose not to understand it. There is a dignity growing around you now, and this dignity has made them realize that access to your love was never something they should have taken for granted. They may not know every detail of your journey, but they sense that you have been healing. They feel that your energy is no longer waiting at the same doorway. This has created urgency within them. Not panic, but awakening. They understand that love cannot survive forever on unspoken feelings. They understand that a connection cannot be restored through imagination alone. They know that eventually a choice must be made, a truth must be spoken, and an action must follow. Something huge is waiting for you within this message, because their most important realization is not simply that they miss you. Missing someone can be temporary. Loneliness can imitate love. Nostalgia can make the past appear more beautiful than it was. But what they are feeling has moved beyond those things. They are beginning to understand what your presence represented. You were not only a source of affection. You were a mirror. You reflected the person they could become if they stopped running from emotional truth. That reflection made them uncomfortable before. Now they are drawn back to it. They remember how you encouraged them without forcing them. They remember how you saw potential in them when they were uncertain of themselves. They remember that your love did not only offer comfort, it called them higher. And perhaps that is what frightened them most. Being loved by you meant they could no longer pretend they were satisfied with a half-awakened life. There is another truth they want you to know, and this is where the message becomes deeply personal. They have compared the emotional safety they felt with you to what they have experienced elsewhere. They did not intend to make these comparisons. They happened naturally. In conversations with others, they noticed the absence of depth. In moments of celebration, they wondered why joy felt incomplete. When someone listened to them, they remembered the way you listened beyond their words. When someone showed interest, they remembered how you recognized emotions they had never spoken aloud. This does not mean they see you as perfect. They remember your flaws, your moments of frustration, your need for answers, and the times when both of you misunderstood each other. But even those memories now appear differently. They see that much of the conflict came from caring without knowing how to communicate safely. Beneath every difficult moment was a desire to be understood. Beneath every period of distance was the fear of losing something neither of you knew how to hold. Stay with this message, because heaven is now revealing the part they have kept most hidden. They want to tell you that there was a moment when they almost reached out. It may have been very recent, or it may have happened during a night when their emotions became impossible to ignore. They opened a message, looked at your name, or imagined what they would say. Their heart moved toward you, but fear interrupted the moment. They began questioning every possible outcome. They worried that their words would sound too late, too weak, or too uncertain. So they stopped. But stopping did not bring relief. It only made the truth louder. They realized that avoiding you does not remove what needs to be said. Silence has protected them from immediate vulnerability, but it has also trapped them inside unanswered questions. They are now reaching a point where the discomfort of remaining silent may become greater than the fear of speaking. What do they want to say? Not merely, "I miss you." Those words would be too small. What they truly want to say is, "I understand more now than I did when I had the chance to understand you." They want to admit that they saw your reactions but did not always see the pain beneath them. They heard your words but did not always hear the courage it took for you to speak. They accepted your care but did not fully understand how much emotional strength it required for you to keep offering it. They want to say, "You were not difficult to love. I was afraid of loving honestly." They want to say, "Your needs were not unreasonable. I was unprepared to meet them." They want to say, "You did not ask me to lose myself. You asked me to stop hiding." These are the words forming inside them now. They may not express them exactly this way, but the meaning is taking shape. My child, do not let this message tempt you into abandoning the growth you have achieved. Divine truth does not lead you backward into confusion. It brings clarity. The purpose of this revelation is not to make you wait beside a silent phone or build your life around another person's uncertainty. It is to show you that your love was not invisible. Your efforts were not meaningless. Your sincerity left a mark even when you could not see the evidence. You once questioned whether they understood your value. The answer is that they are beginning to understand it now, but understanding always arrives with responsibility. A realization without change is only an emotion. An apology without action is only a sentence. Love without courage remains a possibility instead of becoming a reality. This is the lesson now standing before both of you. The person you love wants you to know that they are considering a step. They have not yet decided exactly how to take it, but something within them is moving toward honesty. They may begin indirectly. They may ask about you through someone else. They may revisit a place connected to your memories. They may send a simple message that appears casual on the surface. But beneath that small opening will be a much larger intention. They will be searching for a sign that the door to a truthful conversation is not completely closed. This is where your wisdom will matter. You are not being asked to pretend the past did not happen. You are not being asked to accept unclear words as proof of transformation. You are being prepared to recognize the difference between genuine vulnerability and temporary emotion. Genuine vulnerability takes responsibility. It does not blame you for the silence. It does not demand immediate forgiveness. It does not ask you to shrink your boundaries so they can feel comfortable. It arrives with humility. And something within them is beginning to move toward that humility. Life has shown them that pride cannot create peace. Distance cannot erase a meaningful bond. Distraction cannot heal what honesty has not addressed. They are discovering that the strongest thing they can do is not to appear unaffected, but to admit that they were affected more deeply than they ever revealed. Do not skip now, because the next revelation is the reason this message had to find you at this exact moment. There is a decision forming around the person you love. It is connected to their future, their emotional direction, and the kind of life they are willing to create. For a long time, they have delayed this decision because it requires them to leave behind an older version of themselves. That older version knew how to protect the ego, but not how to protect love. It knew how to withdraw, but not how to repair. It knew how to hide feelings, but not how to build trust. Now they are standing between those two versions of themselves. One path allows them to remain familiar, safe, and emotionally distant. The other path requires them to become honest, accountable, and brave. You are connected to this choice, but you are not responsible for making it for them. That is essential for you to understand. Their awakening belongs to them. Their action must come from within them. Your role is not to rescue them from the consequences of hesitation. Your role is to remain aligned with the truth you learned through this journey. You have learned that love should not require you to lose your voice. You have learned that patience must have boundaries. You have learned that spiritual connection and emotional compatibility must eventually be supported by real-world choices. You have learned that a deep bond can be meaningful and still require maturity to survive. These lessons were not punishments. They were preparation. The person you love senses this preparation in you. They know, perhaps without being able to explain it, that the next conversation cannot be like the old ones. They cannot approach you with half-truths and expect full access to your heart. They cannot offer uncertainty and call it commitment. They cannot speak beautifully for one night and then return to silence. Something about you now requires honesty, and they feel it. That is why they are taking longer than you expected. They are not only deciding whether to speak. They are deciding whether they are ready to live according to what they speak. There is a difference, beloved. Many people can confess emotion when they fear loss. Few are ready to transform their behavior once the emotion has been acknowledged. The person you love is confronting that difference now. They want you to read this important message because they do not want you to believe that the story ended with their silence. Something has been developing beneath the surface. But heaven also wants you to understand that development is not completion. The seed has opened, but the tree has not yet grown. Their heart has recognized the truth, but their life must still respond to it. In the coming days, you may notice subtle signs of movement. A conversation may reach you unexpectedly. A name may appear. A memory may surface at the exact moment you are making a personal decision. Remain grounded. Do not turn every coincidence into a promise. Let actions reveal what words cannot. Let consistency answer what longing has left uncertain. The person you love wants you to know that they are sorry for the version of the story you had to carry alone. They are sorry that you questioned your worth because of their confusion. They are sorry that their inability to speak clearly caused you to search for answers within yourself. They know now that you were not lacking. You were standing before someone who had not yet learned how to receive what you offered. But there is one more thing, and this is the truth they have not yet found the courage to place into words. It concerns a promise they once made privately, perhaps during a moment you never knew about. It was not a promise spoken aloud to you. It was a promise made within themselves after a particular memory returned and broke through every defense they had built. They told themselves that if one specific sign appeared, they would stop running. They would tell you the truth. They would explain why they withdrew, what they discovered during the distance, and what they now believe about the future. For some time, that sign did not appear, and they used its absence as permission to remain silent. But now something has happened. The sign they were waiting for has appeared in a way they cannot ignore. It came through a person, a conversation, or an unexpected moment that carried your memory directly back into their heart. It answered a question they had been asking in secret. And when it happened, they did not feel relief. They felt urgency. Because the sign did not only tell them to speak. It revealed that there may be far less time than they assumed before you make a decision of your own, and what they discovered about that decision is the part of the message they are still terrified to tell you.